з трудових відносин, безпеки і здоров'я на роботі та інспекції праці. Роз'яснює працівникам і роботодавцям, чому важливо декларувати трудові відносини. Завдяки проєкту «Україна зможе» покращити безпеку і здоров'я на роботі, щоб знизити рівень нещасних випадків на роботі і професійних захворювань, зменшити рівень незадекларованої праці, щоб працівники були оформлені згідно із законодавством, були соціально захищені, а роботодавці мали мотивовані команди, підвищити ефективність і результативність інспекції праці, щоб закони виконувалися. Прямуємо разом до безпечної, здорової та задекларованої праці в Україні.
Незадекларована праця не гарантує розвиток бізнесу. Чи знаєте ви, що компанії, які працюють прозоро, мають більші можливості для розвитку? А саме, залучення інвестицій, міжнародне партнерство, найкращі професіонали у команді. Дізнайтеся більше на сайті Державної служби з питань праці dsp.gov.ua. Чи знаєте ви, що незадекларована праця не захищає від штрафу? Роботодавець сплачує штраф за кожного неоформленого працівника. Дізнайтеся більше на сайті Державної служби з питань праці dsp.gov.ua. Чи знаєте ви, що незадекларована праця не захищає ваші трудові та соціальні права? Тільки задекларована праця гарантує вам регулярну заробітну платню, захист від незаконного звільнення, оплачувану відпустку, безпечні та здорові умови праці. Дізнайтеся більше на сайті Державної служби з питань праці dsp.gov.ua. Чи знаєте ви, що
I see people welcoming us from Sumy, the department for SLS department, and well, I see a lot of messages. So, okay, today we have two working languages, Ukrainian and English, because we expect that ILO Geneva and Budapest office representatives will join us, and we do interpretation into English for them. So please check your language channel, interpretation, or so choose the appropriate language channel, and that is Ukrainian. Okay, I see the pluses. We've done that. Second, organizational aspect. I see that a lot of participants come here indicating their actual names, but I see that some people have nicknames and we don't know who those people are. So I ask you to rename. Please write your actual names. It is easy. You need to choose your the window with your picture, and you see the blue square with 3 dots in the upper right corner. Go there and rename yourselves, please. So there you need to indicate your actual name. Why that's important? Because if you want to speak up, to participate in discussion, in this way we will understand better who is going to speak up. And now, please, if you have managed to do that, write plus. I see Vyacheslav Mikhailovich and Mr. Tegnera, Miroshnichenko. We see you all, and we see your names. So mostly everybody has their actual names. Thank you for that. And another technical aspect, probably you see that we are recording this event. Let me reassure you, this is not for public use. It is not going to be anywhere in the media. This is just internal processes in order to take note of the ideas, suggestions that we will hear from you today. The only thing that I would like to do is to do a couple of screenshots with those people who activate their cameras, so that we could make a couple of posts on Facebook based on as a follow-up to our event. So if you don't want your picture to be in that screenshot, please write I object in the chat box and we will respect that. I see colleagues from Lviv Oblast joining us. Welcome. And also on Facebook and on YouTube, we are broadcasting into languages, Ukrainian and English. If some of the colleagues cannot connect to Zoom, you can follow us on Facebook. But there it is more difficult to speak up, actually. You cannot participate in discussion. However, you can write your comments or questions, suggestions in the chat. Any other technical organizational aspects on the part of our participants? If you still have encountered any issues, please write in the chat. You will have 1 minute to do that. It seems that there are no issues, and that's good. Then let's move on with our agenda. I welcome you again. Welcome colleagues from Kyiv, from Oblast, from the SLS, from Employment Service, from other public authorities, social partners. We are happy to see you, and let me remind you why we invited you here. Today, we would like to share results of the information campaign, which was actively implemented. We started actively implemented it this year, Go to Light. This is focused on the issue of undeclared labor in Ukraine. It is very important for us to share these results with you, because these results, these findings, these are not outcomes of the project or just one authority. These are outcomes and achievements of all of us together. This is our teamwork, which we managed to organize during the year. The leader for the project implementation was SOS of Ukraine, but all the other institutions actively engaged. And this year we have quite impressive results regarding communication. And also, it is very important, I would like to emphasize, to explain what we are going to provide to you today and what we expect from you. So today we only speak about the communication activities, awareness raising campaigns on undeclared labor. So we only speak about this tool to impact, to work on the problem. And today we are not going to speak about taxes or legislation or the procedure for inspections and the mandate of the inspectors. Some say that you don't hear me. Please check your channel. Любов Karyakina, please check your language channel. And I ask our technical guys to help you. So now we speak only about a small fragment, about just some of the tools in the toolkit that we can use to address the problem. We only speak about communication tools now. And why we need that, why that's important? Because we need step by step, systemically, insistently, and consistently develop awareness among workers and employers on undeclared labor, on the risks related and ways to resolve the issue. So that by and by, with a lot of patience, we managed to develop the culture among employers and workers for them to understand that declaring a labor relations is the same as brushing teeth every morning. So we are going to work until 11 today. We are going to hear several welcome addresses from SLS representative, and then our colleague from NGO Change Communication will present results, findings of the campaign, and we would be very grateful if then you could join and share your regional experience, and maybe you could suggest some ideas for this year, what we could do together in the framework of the campaign that is going to be further implemented this year. Let me mention that I very much invite you to focus on communication-related issues. Let us try to be brief, and let us come up with suggestions, not just raising issues. If there is an issue, please try to come up with your suggestion on how to address, resolve it using communication tools. So here I stop, and I'm happy to pass the floor to Mr. Dehnera, Deputy Head of State Labor Service of Ukraine, for his welcome address to all of us and colleagues from the region. Good morning, Sophia. Good morning, colleagues. And above all, I would like to express gratitude to ILO EU project for your ongoing support of our work. And today we are here in order to discuss one of the most important components, I believe. This is preventive work, raising awareness. That's important because actually inspectors have two efficient tools to impact this significant issue that unfortunately cannot be resolved very fast. This is undeclared work. And these two tools, this is about control mandate and the control authority and awareness raising. Since our task is not so much is not about punishing the employers who use undeclared labor, but rather we focus on, and you see that in the information campaign, we try them to go to help them to go to light, to go legal, to declare the activities and the work of the employees. So definitely a significant role, if we speak about inspectors' authority, is associated with awareness raising. And definitely, we are very grateful to EU-ILO project that helps us work on the day-to-day basis. And definitely, labor inspectors on the daily basis conduct this work. They conduct visits to employers to face-to-face communicate with them and to convince them to work legally. Let me also mention that quite significant efforts and quite efficient efforts were made by inspectors in 2020. And thus we see that based on the ratio of control activities and information visits, unprecedented number of them were held in 2020. And if you sum it up, more than 30,000 enterprises were visited by the small number of inspectors that we have with rather low motivation. Unfortunately, that's the reality now. However, the inspectors do quite a lot of work. Unfortunately, we didn't manage to implement everything as planned based on the plans for 2020, because definitely the lockdown restrictions, the pandemic affected the procedures for all of us. This is about enterprises, this is about public authorities. However, we always try to engage as many respondents as possible to our activities, other central authorities, NGOs, and trade unions, associations, employer associations. And I see that here we have quite a lot of representatives of not only our territorial offices that in the beginning of the year implemented all of this work that will be presented. We also try to conduct consultations and to develop the plans, including communication plans, because it is very important for us to not only have our vision, develop our vision, but it is important to hear feedback from all the stakeholders and the authorities and civil society representatives. So above all, I'm grateful to the project, and I'm very grateful to and respectful to the inspectors who worked hard to do that job. And sometimes they had to sacrifice their days off, their weekends. How we see outstanding results, outcomes of this hard work, where regardless of the pandemic, at the end of last year, we had not only the same number of insured and secured employees, but we see this number growing slowly. Thank you, and I pass the floor to the next speaker. Thank you, Igor Anatolievich. We are going to move on, and let us immediately focus on the essential thing, and we pass the floor to representatives of our partner NGO Change Communication organization, relying on their experience of work with EU institutions and other professional institutions working in the field of communication. They helped us to focus on the channels and to develop the set the kit of materials that would really hit the point, that would be spot on. And the active phase of the campaign that we launched this year was preceded by a lot of preparatory work, where we analyzed the information space, whether there is such a notion as undeclared labor in the media field and the information space, what people think about that, what they browse for on the internet. And based on that audit of the situation, which we held in 2019, or we even started doing that in late 2018, due to their contribution, we managed to develop a very efficient and targeted strategy. I pass the floor to Natalia and Maria Samohonek. Please share your screen now, and you have 20 minutes for your presentation.
Добрий день всім. Я Наталя Шумейко.
Good morning. I am
І почну
Natalia
нашу
Shumeyko,
презентацію.
and I'm going to start with our presentation.
Як вже сказала Софія,
So,
ми
as it
почали
was mentioned by
активну фазу
Sophia, we
кампанії в
started
січні
actively
2020
implementing the
року,
campaign
а за
in
півроку до
January
цього розробили
2020,
стратегію
and
кампанії і
half a
презентували
year
її
before that, we
Держпраці і
developed the
широкому
strategy for the
колу соціальних
campaign, and we
партнерів у
presented it to
вересні
SLS and
19-го.
to
Багато хто з
social
вас був
partners
присутній
in
на цій
September
презентації,
2019. A lot
і
of you were
сподіваюся,
present
ми
at that
продовжуємо
presentation,
розмову,
and
а
I
не
hope that
починаємо.
we continue this
І
discussion and
наступний
don't
слайд,
start
будь
it from
ласка.
scratch.
Нагадаю,
Let
комунікаційні
me
цілі
remind
нашої
you
кампанії
the
«Виходь на
communication
світло»
goals
– це
of our
сприяти
campaign, Go
підвищенню
to Light, and
обізнаності
this is
щодо
to
проблеми
contribute to raising
незадекларованої
awareness on
праці і
undeclared
почати
work
формування базового
and
рівня
to start
розуміння проблеми
forming a basic
потенційними
level of
цільовими
understanding
групами.
of the problem by
Наступний слайд, будь
potential
ласка.
target groups. Next
Наші
slide.
4 ключові
Our
повідомлення
four key
для
messages are these.
всіх аудиторій, для
This is for
працівників
all
і для
audiences,
роботодавця.
for
І
workers
наступний
and for
слайд, будь ласка.
employers.
Тут ми
And
намалювали
here
схему
you
нашої
see
кампанії,
the
і
chart
хочу
of our
акцентувати,
campaign,
що
and let me
центром і
emphasize
основою
that
нашої
the
кампанії
focus
є
and the
її інформаційна
basis of
платформа.
our
Це сторінка подолання
campaign
незадекларованої
is the
праці
information
на
campaign. This is
веб-сайті
tackling
Держпраці.
UTW
На цю
page on
сторінку ми завантажуємо
SLS
всі наші
website.
матеріали,
There we
які ми
upload all the
розроблюємо, і всі
materials
вони
that we are
знаходяться в
developing.
відкритому
All of
доступі.
them are
Всі
in
інші наші
open
інструменти
access, and
кампанії
all the
ведуть
tools
аудиторію
that we
саме
use
на цю
within the
сторінку,
campaign,
а
they
також мають свої
actually link the
специфічні
audience to this
задачі,
webpage and also there are some specific tasks
розміщення
associated with
наших
each of the channels. This is about placing
ключових повідомлень.
our
Акцентую, що для
key
студентської
messages
аудиторії ми
placement.
інтегрувалися
For
в
student audience,
студентський
we
фестиваль
integrated
реклами,
to the
і про це
student
детальніше трошки
advertising
пізніше. Ми також
festival. We will
покажемо
speak about
вам
that a bit later.
декілька відео.
We will also show you
І
a couple of
далі,
videos.
наступний слайд,
Let's go on now.
про результати кампанії.
Now speaking
Що
about
дуже
the
важливо.
outcomes, key results of the campaign.
Охоплення
That's
кампанії
important.
нашої
The
річної,
overall
яке
reach
ми
of the
порахували
campaign
приблизно, це 3,7
on the
мільйонів.
year basis is approximately
Праворуч
3.7
можна
million.
подивитися розподіл
On
за
the right, you can
інструментами.
see the
І я
figure broken
хочу
down by
подякувати всім нашим
instruments
соціальним
and
партнерам. Як ви бачите,
channels. I'm
внесок
grateful to
соціальних
all of
партнерів
our
в нашу
social partners.
кампанію
As you can see, the
суттєвий.
contribution of our social
І
partners
без вашої
into the
допомоги ми
campaign
б не
was
мали
very
такі
significant.
результати, які
Without your
маємо.
support, we would not have the
І
results as we have
всі
them now.
інші наші інструменти
All
мають
the
свої
other
специфічні задачі
instruments
і
have
працюють
specific
на
tasks and
іншу
they work
кожен на свою аудиторію.
for
І
their
кожна
audiences,
з
specific
цих
target
аудиторій має
audiences, and
свої
each of
специфічні
these
звички,
audiences has some specific habits
де вона звикла дивитися і
where
споживати
they are
контент, тому
used
інструменти
to
досить
look
різні.
for content.
Наступний слайд, будь
And so
ласка.
these are different tools that we were
Ефективність
using.
нашої кампанії ми
The
вимірювали
effectiveness of our campaign
соціологію.
was
Ми
measured
замовляли
based on
соціологічне
sociological
дослідження.
tools. We ordered a sociological
Результати цього
survey,
дослідження
and the
показали
findings of
нам,
the
що
survey proved
кампанія була
that the
успішною.
campaign was positive,
Наприклад,
a success. For example,
62% цільової аудиторії
62% of the
повідомили,
target
що
audience
дізналися більше
declared that
про
they
нашу
learned
кампанію.
more about our campaign.
52% цільової аудиторії
52% of
вважають
target
інформацію
audience
кампанії
find the
корисною
campaign
для себе.
information useful.
48% працівників
48%
готові
of
вимагати
employees
декларування
are
своїх
ready to
трудових
demand
відносин, так вони
declaring their
сказали. А
labor
7%
relations.
роботодавців
7%
сказали, що
of
готові
employers
перевірити
declared their readiness
правильність
to check
оформлення
their
працівників.
relations with workers
Наступний
are
слайд, будь ласка.
adequately
І
registered and documented.
загальний рівень
Now, the
охоплення
general
кампанії
coverage
складає
of reach of the
18%
campaign
від
is
ядра нашої
18%
цільової
of
аудиторії. Ядро нашої
the
цільової аудиторії
core
– це
of our target
сині
audience. The
комірці,
core is
роботодавці
about
і самозайняті.
blue collars, employers
І
and self-employed
наступний
people.
слайд.
Next
На
slide.
цьому слайді
Here,
ви
in this
бачите
slide, you can see
нашу
our
інформаційну платформу,
information platform.
сторінку подолання
This
нездекларованої
is the
праці
webpage on
на сайті Держпраці. І
UDW
хочу
on SLS
зауважити, що
website.
всі
Let
матеріали,
me mention that
які
all the
є тут,
materials that
вони
are
доступні
available
для
there, they are accessible.
друку, для
You can print
завантаження
them
на
out,
ваших
you can
інформаційних
download them to
платформах і
your
для
information
розповсюдження.
platforms,
Тобто
and they can be
їми можна
disseminated.
користуватися,
So you
щоб
can use
долучатися до
them
нашої
to
кампанії.
join our campaign.
Наступний слайд, будь ласка. Трошки детальніше
Now, a
хочу
little bit
розказати
about
про один із інструментів
one of the tools,
спецпроект на
the special
медіа
project on
«Нове
media
время»,
«Нове время»,
який ми
which we
розробили і
developed
реалізували
and
у вересні цього
implemented
року.
in
Чому
September
взагалі
last
ми
year.
фактично дублювали
So
наші
why we
експлейнери,
actually
наші
duplicated
інфографіки
our
і відео
explainers and
на цій
infographics and
платформі,
videos on that platform,
тому що
because
за нашими попередніми
based on our
дослідженнями, які ми
preliminary
робили,
surveys and
виявилося, що
analysis that we did, we
95%
discovered that 95%
аудиторії українців
of the audience
шукають
of
в Google
Ukrainians
пошуку інформацію за
use
нашою
Google
темою
search looking for
російською мовою.
information within
Що
our
вони отримують?
topic in Russian.
Відповідь
So
Google
what
видача
they
видає
have
їм матеріали російською
Well,
мовою
they
і
receive
походження Російської
materials in
Федерації, тому що
Russian,
інфополе
and
досі
it
було
originates from
абсолютно
the Russian
ненасичене
Federation, because the
інформацією
information field is
українського
not
походження,
saturated,
але
is not
російською
rich in
мовою. Ми
information in
вирішили, що цей
Ukrainian.
геп треба заповнити і
So we decided
задовільнити
to
цей
fill that
попит.
gap and
І
to
ми
meet
з
their request.
медіа «Нове Время»,
And
яке ви
with
вибрали,
the
тому що воно
new
має
Нове
дуже велике
Время media,
охоплення, дуже
which we pick
якісну
up because
аудиторію
they have
і
very significant audience
правильні цінності.
and
Ми створили
adequate
окрему
values.
сторінку
We created
спецпроекту
a
і
separate
українською і російською
page for
мовами.
the
Це
special
брендована
project in
сторінка, і
Ukrainian and Russian. This is
завантажили
a
наші
branded page,
експлейнери, інфографіки
and
і
we
відео. Я хочу сказати, що успіх
uploaded
був
our
неочікуваний.
explainers,
Зазвичай
infographics and videos.
матеріал
The
на
success was
спецпроекти на Новому
unexpected.
Времені
Usually
отримує
materials
приблизно
on the special
4-6
project of Нове Время
тисяч
receive
переглядів.
4
Наш
to
перший
6,000
експлейнер, чому не
views.
задекларований,
Our first
незадекларована праця в
explainer,
Україні
why
погано для
undeclared
всіх,
labor in
за
Ukraine
2 дні
is
отримав
negative to all the
30
parties,
тисяч
received
переглядів, а на
30,000
сьогодні це
views
90
in 2
тисяч.
days, and by now it
Це
is
дуже і
already
дуже
90,000.
хороший результат. А взагалі наш
That's a very good
спецпроект
result.
має приблизне
All
охоплення
in all, our
100
special
тисяч
project has coverage
читачів.
of
Наступний
100,000
слайд, будь ласка.
readers. Next slide.
Хочу акцентувати
Let me
на ролі
emphasize
територіальних органів
role
держпраці в
of
нашій кампанії,
territorial
які
SLS
розміщували впродовж року
bodies,
наші
authorities
відео та
in our
аудіоролики
campaign
на
during the year. They placed
регіональних
our
ТВ
videos
та
and on
радіоканалах.
regional TV and
Цю
radio
інформацію детально
channels.
ви можете подивитися
This
в повній
information
версії
you can see
звіту,
it in
але я
more
скажу,
detail
що
in
це
full version of
51
the report,
ТВ-канал та
but this is
44
51 TV
радіостанції.
channel and 44 radio
Трошки
stations.
детальніше наступний
broadcast.
слайд, будь ласка. Про український
Now a bit
студентський
more about
фестиваль
the Ukrainian
реклами. Ми інтегрувалися
Festival,
і
Advertising
залучили,
We
інтегрувалися
integrated
з окремою
with
своєю номінацією «Виходь на
our
світло, декларуй
separate
працю». І
nomination, Go to Light
залучили
Declare
800
Work, and
учасників.
we engaged
47
800 participants.
учасників
47 participants
взяли участь в нашій
participated
номінації
in our
і представили
nomination, and they
22
presented
відеороботи.
22
3
videos.
найкращі ми покажемо
Three
вам трошки пізніше.
Winners will
Наступний
be
слайд, будь
demonstrated
ласка.
a bit later.
І детальніше про співпрацю з
And now,
соціальними
speaking
партнерами.
about our work with social
Насправді,
partners.
соціальне партнерство
Actually,
це
social
дуже і дуже
partnership,
ресурсна
it is a very resourceful
річ, і
important thing.
Таким ресурсом треба
And this
обов'язково
resource
треба обов'язково мати на увазі,
needs to
користуватися.
be
І в таких
taken into
кампаніях
account. It is
це дуже і
important to
дуже
use
важливо.
that, and in these campaigns that
Хочу
is
подякувати
so
всім нашим соціальним
I would
партнерам,
like to
які
express gratitude
долучилися.
to
Без
all our
вас
social partners, those who joined,
наша
because without our
кампанія не була б такою успішною. І хочу
campaign would
сказати,
not
що
be that successful.
ми вели
Let me
перемовини,
also mention
роздрукували 6
held
тисяч з
negotiations.
половиною
We
постерів для
published
наших соціальних партнерів і
6,5
надсилали.
thousand.
Що сталося?
Одну хвилинку, будь ласка, Наталя. У нас трошки із каналами мовлення невеличкий збій. Зараз ми зробимо.
We will correct that now. Just a second. Maxim, let us know when we can go back to. Yes, we can continue. Okay, we can continue. So we are very grateful to the Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine, Confederation of Free Trade Unions, State Employment Service, the Tax Service, Fiscal Service, and the EU-ILO project that is developing the network of centers for social services in Ukraine. And they engaged, they helped us to disseminate our posters to village councils throughout Ukraine. And here you can see our information posters, what they look like. On the right, you see several smaller posters in centers for administrative services. And on the left, you see our big poster on fines. This is targeted at employers. This is the company that provides water sports services on the Dnipro River. Also, our social partners, they disseminated our information by placing it on their websites and Facebook pages. We were joined by the Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine, the Confederation of Free Trade Unions of Ukraine, the Confederation of Employers, the State Employment Service, Ministry of Education and Science, and a number of higher educational institutions, universities that joined us in autumn 2020. They placed our videos on their Facebook pages, and also the Ministry of Social Policy. Next slide. So what we would like to enhance, and where we believe that we still need to negotiate more and work more successfully. Well, this is our cooperation with the Federation of Employers of Ukraine, the Tax Service, and Ministry of Economic Development. We will definitely find the adequate formats, and we will hold negotiations, and I hope that our cooperation will be a success and it will be fruitful. We would also like to more actively involve press service of SLS in placement of our materials via social partners in the regions. And again, let me mention that this is a very important and influential communication channel, which probably must be used in the campaigns, in the framework of the campaigns. And this is about next steps. These are several important aspects that we plan for the next phase of the campaign. What we plan to do next, we plan to develop additional new explainers, thematic explainers on undeclared work, where the information would be delivered in simple language, it would be systematized, and this information is in very high demand among our audience, and we are planning to develop a couple of explainers more on relevant topics. We are planning to develop new flexible formats for dissemination in social media. We also plan to continue cooperation with Новое Время online platform and VUA. We are planning to develop further information materials for stakeholders, for social partners, and we also plan integration to the Association for You campaign and cooperate with employers associations, business associations. For more details, well, let me remind you about Association for You project. Association for You is the project of EU in Ukraine that raises awareness of Ukrainians on European integration. As you know, in Ukraine undertook the duty, the commitment to cooperate with the EU to provide population, to ensure a decent labor, to decent work to population, which is reflected in the EU-Ukraine Association Agreement. And we believe that integration into that framework campaign would be an efficient step, and it will be very much demanded, because this is about outstanding and rather impressive formats. So we believe that it would be very relevant step. That is it. Here you can see our contact information, and thank you very much for your attention. If you have any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Thank you, Natalia. Well, this presentation is a very short overview of the full report. In the full version, you could see a lot of information. Now, please remove the slide. And the link to the full version of the report was sent to you together with the invitation. And let us check if you have read the report. How many slides are there in the full version of the report? Can you write in the chat how many slides are there? Let's organize this competition. How many slides do you have in full version of the report? 100? Any other guesses? 107? 104. Oh, that's not one, definitely. Nobody is suggesting that. Okay. Well, we have an idea about who have read the full version of the report, who have not yet had time to do that, but I very much recommend that you do that. You will see the link at the end of this presentation. The first version was 100 or 103 slides. The last version is 110, so it is just a minor error. But thank you for having read the report. Now you have a good idea about the work that was done, who our partners were, how we implemented that. And now if we have questions, we will now only have Q&A to clarify the information. If you now go to reactions button in Zoom, you will see raise hand. Please do that, use that so that we could see that you want to ask a question. We will see you and we will pass the floor to you. I try to do that now. So this is how it works. I don't see anyone raising hands so far. Then I hope that everything is more or less clear, that information that we've presented. And I believe that it is obvious that the key criterion or the precondition for prerequisite for our success was that throughout the year, we worked all of us together. Ukraine is a huge country. Every structure and authority has territorial departments and units at the regional level. And due to these networks, we managed to cover to reach target audiences approaching from different ways. And we managed to work with youth and with the sole proprietors who hire workers and those people who come for help, looking for a job, and they come to the employment service. These are all segments of our target audiences. And now I would like to pass the floor to those who are ready to share their experience, those who represent the regions, maybe some of SLS territorial authorities, some representatives who would like to share the practices that you implemented at the local level. Please raise a hand and speak up. And I'm really eager to hear someone from the regions. Okay. Now you are silent. Think about that. I try to inspire you. And let me mention that due to you, the territorial office of SLS, well, we managed to organize quite a high level of awareness due to TV and radio broadcasters. In Chernivtsi Oblast, for example, several times I heard audios on the radio on undeclared labor. I know that you did that in other oblasts as well, and that was done within social quotas, so that didn't incur additional costs. So due to you, colleagues, we organized a really significant information impact. So I see that people asked for comment. Several participants, Mr. Merashnichenko, Confederation of Employers of Ukraine, you wanted to speak up. So let's find Alexei and activate his microphone, unmute him. Good morning. I see that I am already unmuted. So thank you, Sophia. You inspired me to speak up. But above all, I would like to express gratitude to our colleagues who have prepared a good presentation. Thank you for the work that you're doing. And let me mention that the Confederation so we will help you, support you as much as possible. And on your last slide, where you mentioned social partners and SLS, etc., but there were no social partners. You didn't mention us among the social partners. Only on the last slide you mentioned the Confederation. But we see now that we need to target businesses, because undeclared labor, undeclared work is about moving in two directions. First of all, this is about the workers, but on the other side, this is about employers. And I believe that we need to think about the emphasis that we put the focus for our information awareness campaign. When we launched the project, we had a bit different approach to labor legislation and to declared or undeclared labor. And it is very important to understand what we see as the final objective, as the end result of the campaign go to light. Mr. Degnera mentioned that this is about an increased number of insured, of people covered with insurance, but I see a bit different vision there. Because look, what do we mean by going to light? Is it about combating those payments in envelopes, as we put it, or increasing the number of people insured, payment of social contribution, or to do our best to include people, to engage them into labor relationships and to include them on the payroll? Even on your website, you indicate that the advantages are about the paid leaves and sick leaves and the coverage with the payments on social protection. But look, during several recent months, SLS and the Ministry of Economy have launched a number of new initiatives. This is the law on several signs of labor relations, as we refer to that, and the law adopted by Verkhovna Rada on remote and home work. And the know-how, this is the so-called freelancer law and 0 hours contract, which just 2 days ago the Cabinet of Ministers accepted for consideration. So we need to have a look at that, and we need to take into account all the prospective amendments in the legislative framework, as well as the changes introduced by the COVID situation. So we need to think about what would be the goal or the result of that campaign, what we want to achieve. Is it about a higher amount of taxes paid or the greater number of people insured, but their salary will go down, and you see that the economic situation is not that positive. And so what should be the result? So thanks to the team of the project and the NGO colleagues for your good work. Thank you, Alexei, and you have touched upon the legislative framework and why we are doing all of that. It is important. I believe that all the options that you mentioned, they are interrelated and they are important. If an employee is properly registered, he or she has the rights that apply to employees, and same under the respective duties of employers. So thus we have the insured people, and we have situation where they pay taxes and contributions. I see you disagree with me, but as a result, we also make sure that the state can comply with its obligations to employers and employees. COVID, well, sure, it created the conditions where we now observe, we see new forms of relations which were not regulated previously by certain provisions of the legislation. And that's also one of the reasons of undeclared labor. And sometimes it is even kind of spontaneous. It happens spontaneously, since there is the legal gap in the legislation. It is sometimes kind of difficult to formalize that. And this is the work that the Ministry of Economy is doing. They're preparing, drafting new laws. And that's important. Our project is ready to provide technical recommendations and advice to support that work. We are ready to share, to take into account international standards and practices. Alexei, 1 minute for you. Just 1 minute, so that our colleagues could take that into account when we develop the project further. Look, the state started the campaign to fight civil contracts. I don't understand why they so insist on fighting that, because, well, civil agreements, that's about payment of all taxes. And so they pay social contribution, the military duty, and people become insured because they have paid contributions to all of these funds and they are insured. And we say that it is something so bad. Why? So I believe that we need to stop waging that war, and we probably need to suggest some initiatives. That was my idea. Thank you. On my part, the key statement is that the form of that contract is not good or bad, but whether it is used appropriately. Now, Igor Anatolievich, I wanted to start the discussion and highlight the key aspects there. Why I mentioned insured individuals, because it is the most straightforward and the simplest way to measure dynamics and the structure of undeclared labor, whether it's going up or down. Speaking about the goals, I also mentioned that our goal is to support everyone in going to light and working legally. And let me also emphasize once again the key principle for work of a labor inspector. He or she is not an advocate for employees or the prosecutor for employers. This is an official who exerts control so that everybody could work in the legislative framework. And if we speak about civil contracts, we don't mind them. And actually, our idea is that the format of the contract, be it a civil or labor contract, they need to be in line with the very essence of the relationship. If it is really about civil relations, then it's no problem. We don't mind that. But somehow we see the situation where if the legislation and enforcement framework is not kind of convenient, not friendly, a lot of people try to circumvent that, because with civil agreement, you do not need to think about leaves or labor agreements. And so let us improve this legislative framework for civil contracts to really make sure that our framework is up to date, because definitely there are obsolete provisions, and SOS doesn't mind civil agreements now. Okay, and now I turn our vehicle back to the track, to the communication aspect, undeclared labor and communication instruments. We're not speaking about legal tools now. Now, Tatiana Minenko. She is our colleague from the NIDA project. Tatiana, are you with us? Yes, here I am. Let us focus on the practices that we had or ideas for this year. Yes, let's do that. Good morning, dear colleagues. Tatiana Minenko, ILO. I represent a sister project that has a lot of components, inclusive labor market to create jobs in Ukraine. And among other things, we work on decentralization of the employment policy by means of establishing local employment partnerships in various oblasts. So I work in Kherson Oblast and the local employment partnership in Kherson City. And using this opportunity that Sophia asks us to focus on communication tools, I would like to explain how us as a sister project, how we use those elaborations and tools as presented within the communication campaign, Communication for Change, and what we achieved there. Local employment partnership also includes a lot of components, among other things, that the supply and demand in the labor market by developing professional standards, training standards, etc. But I would like to focus on the topic of our today's discussion. And that is the component on active employment policies in the labor market and activation of inactive and long-term and long unemployed population. We held a survey in Kherson City among long-term unemployed people. 344 were covered, and we discovered a very negative situation. A lot of those long-term employed people who receive payments from the unemployment fund, they are informally employed and they do work under undeclared relations. We discovered a lot of other phenomena that they lack leadership skills, they lack tools to search for job, and also we conducted a very interesting survey. There were a lot of interesting findings. I talked to Antonia, to Sophia, that, for example, if in Portugal they discovered that a long-term unemployed person does work somewhere, he or she would have to repay these funds to the fund. But this is a bit different discussion. So, speaking about those elaborations and tools that we could use due to the EU-ILO project work, in particular, Go to Lie, Declare Work campaign, I'm very grateful for those 4 key messages that were presented today. Our partners and the Employment Service, above all, in cooperation with the SLS department and with NGOs that deal with vulnerable populations, they used these messages in respect of the regarding the target audience, long-term unemployed, inactive population, or those people who, as we detected, are employed informally or even precarious labor, that precarious labor that is like webcamming, etc. So these key messages were conveyed to them, and they were accompanied with a set of services, package of services. And also we are doing the work in progress with employers. And this even goes beyond the frame of our project. And I believe that it is happening due to those partnerships that we have developed between Employment Service and SLS departments. And finally, something that we didn't expect, but this was suggested by the Employment Service, and I could see that it is included into the Go to Lie, Declare Work communication strategy, that's preventive work. This is awareness raising among students, young people, especially those who are going to graduate soon, conveying them the message about advantages of declared labor. Well, actually, everybody says that you will, so what you invest will pay off to you. So I do believe that these messages, they are targeted. To me, they are more successful than what I saw in the real way, because when you go to Lviv, you see the video on undeclared labor, and you are very much excited when you see logotypes or logos of our partners and SLS, but you don't quite understand the goal. Well, it works as an information campaign, but these targeted messages, and I believe that it could be one of recommendations to develop even more targeted, focused messages. Well, that's good, because if we work with youth, we could think about TikTok or Instagram or some other trendy channels, because young people are there. They do not travel much in railways, trains. Well, sometimes they do travel in intercity, however. So one of my recommendations would be to think about more channels to disseminate this information. Maybe you are already doing that, and maybe I just do not know about that, but thank you. Thank you, Tatiana. And really, the important role of the Employment Service and the projects that help to improve the services, to expand the range. This is about people who have not worked for a long time, and they are really in the group that potentially may have undeclared labor relations, or they may move to that. And also an interesting target group, it is those people who undergo training as entrepreneurs, who are planning to launch their startups, and potentially they will become employers. There, it is important to understand that we are speaking about MSMEs, because we have much fewer cases of undeclared work for larger enterprises where the situation is significantly different. So I believe that if we use this channel, we could timely impact that group to really preempt, to prevent the situation where they kind of promote or engage in undeclared labor, undeclared work. So another speaker now is Irina Sidoryak, Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine. I saw you on the list. Irina, you're welcome. After that, Yevhen Romat, who will speak about working with youth, organizing social advertising festivals. So Irina. Maybe I start. Good morning, colleagues. Can you hear me now? Yes, you can. I welcome you all, and I'm very grateful for this opportunity to join this interesting event. And in this project, we tried to be as active as possible. The work that was held was rather about dissemination of information posts that we received in the framework of the project. Throughout this period, we disseminated information about advantages of declared labor via the hotline of the Federation of Trade Unions of Ukraine, and we are going to continue that work. Also, let me mention, and this may be our suggestion, well, we are now negotiating, we have the ongoing negotiations to develop activities with the coordination, with the Legal Aid Coordination Center. So we plan in the short-term prospect organizing a project for those children who graduate from orphanages, because this is the population that often doesn't have access to those platforms where they could access information on advantages of declared labor. And we plan to go on with our awareness raising work based on the platforms of those educational activities that we are planning. We are planning to organize seminars, and also during the activities organized by trade unions, these conferences, all the materials that we received from you, we continue disseminating them as if birds, they are flying away. And the posters, we still have some of them in stock, so we are planning them to pass them over to grassroots trade union organizations, trade unions, where people come in order to receive information services. Speaking about the hotline, recently we see that a lot of information or calls to our hotline, and there we provide consultations and we refer people to the SLS website, to our website, where we place all of these information materials so that people could see that themselves and that could recommend that to their colleagues, to not to make mistakes when they get employed, and to see the hazards of undeclared labor and advantages of declared work, where you work in the light, where everything is clear, where there are labor rights, and where there is the opportunity to protect your rights. That's it. Thank you, Irina. And the key statement that we need to keep in mind is that we really need to go to the very grassroots level and to support this immediate contact. I support videos, information materials, and posters, audio materials, but definitely face-to-face communication, warm person-to-person contact, that is something that helps us open ears and eyes and helps people think. And we hope that our leaflets, booklets, that they are not just on shelves, that they are being used. And when we collected stories of those people who used to work in an undeclared way and then they registered their relations, their first reaction was, okay, I received some materials, maybe I will read them later. But where you give them the materials after face-to-face discussion with a representative of SLS or employment service, people start thinking, and they have this kind of memo materials. They go back to that, they start thinking about that, and they arrive at some conclusions and make decisions. Now I pass the floor to Mr. Yevhen Romat. He is our reliable partner where we work with youth for 2 years now. We've been successfully participating in social advertising festival with youth, with educational facilities throughout Ukraine, and we suggested the nomination, the best video on undeclared labor for students. At the end of this event, we will see winners, this year's winners' works, and please your ideas for this year and impressions. Thank you, Sophia, and thank you for this very reliable cooperation as we programmed, as we planned. I absolutely agree with you that we should not allow for underestimation of the importance of communication. I do not really need to appeal to anyone. Let me just speak about myself. It seems that I try to keep pace with time, and still I discovered a lot of new messages for myself. When asked together with Go to Light, Declare Work campaign, where we managed where we worked with students who came up with new messages and arguments, and that is something that we need to disseminate. And communication, I believe, communication awareness raising work is now not at the due level. So I deal with advertising. I am the head of the union for the advertising sector. I teach advertising. And even though I respect printed media and other media and TV, I still believe that we need to use these channels to reach young audience above all, because they are just starting their labor life and they have no experience. We need to use the internet because this is about lower budgets, or we can enter into partnership agreements with internet media resources. We can engage bloggers, influencers. So we need to do this work and to disseminate this information. And I'm grateful to the EU project, EU-ILO project. And that was about very efficient support. The anniversary 15th Ukrainian Student Advertising Festival was held to a great extent due to the support of the project. We would like to probably see, well, sure, we will not beg, but it would be logical if our ministry, the Ministry of Education and Science of Ukraine, well, if they could support us. It's not even about financing of our activities. The Institute of Journalism of Kyiv National University, named after Taras Shevchenko, where I work now, well, we would, on behalf of the Institute, we would ask you to include the competition, the festival, in the list of the competition supported by the ministry. As a result, the students will have some enhancements of their portfolio. This is also about credits where they receive grants, etc. And another aspect, again, I'm very grateful to the project. Last year, we held, I believe, we implemented a good program. Those were 4 webinars. Some of them had the audience of about 100 people. So I believe that it would be reasonable for us to continue this practice if we increase the number of webinars, if we increase the number of the educational facilities that we engage. And I believe that that already has had an effect. Because for 2 years now, we've been working with the Go to Light project, and I see some quality changes. And this is about the children's or the students, actually, the grown-ups. So they are young, they are inexperienced, but I see that there are some changes, shifts in their mindset. They have a different perception now, especially those who participated in the previous festival supported by the project. So once again, thank you for your support. And I can assure you, I believe that it is a very important field of work. It needs to be further developed because it is something that we lack, information that we lack in media space. Thank you, Yevhen. And that's true that the student festival, it is not about massive work aimed at the quantity. It is very much about quality because you work with students, you make it possible for them to get to know about this issue, to digest it, to interpret that, and to present it in a creative way. That is really a significant, important process. And I'm sure that even though there are not that many students who came up with their videos, and there are even fewer winners, but these are the young guys who definitely have awareness about that issue. They have this understanding. It is imprinted in their minds and they will never forget that. Okay, any other comments from our participants, suggestions, because our time is over now and we are going to wrap up. Maybe someone would like to add something to comment. You can use your raise hand button. 3, 2, 1. Nobody did that. Okay, then we are going to, now I see Vasil Andreev, just in time. You're welcome. This is trade union of the construction sector. Thank you, Sophia, and sorry for being a couple of seconds late. We've just come back from a construction site, and you know that if we speak about labor safety, occupational safety, and formalization of labor relations in our sector is a tragic and dramatic situation. However, with the help of the project and by distributing those banners that we received early last year, well, you know that the lockdown did not affect our sector too much. Construction sector kept on working. And however, there was a problem for us because actually the cabinet prohibited SLS activities in any form. And the only counterparts that we could work with were local councils and the police, where we tried to tackle the problem of declaring labor relations. Often, construction workers, they try to use the tricks where they say, like, send us a copy of your documents and now go up to the crane and we will register you. But of course, after we check them a couple of months after, and we could see that there was no information in the pension fund database about those employees. However, we will keep working, and I would like to express gratitude to the project and to the Federation of Trade Unions for this cooperation. Thank you, Irina, for coordinating that work. And I believe that all the information on our part is on Facebook, and you can see outcomes of our activities where we work on declaring labor relations. Speaking about success stories, as printed, as published well, my only suggestion is to make those cases more life-based, more actual life-based, because now success stories are rather about stories. I mean, they can hardly be used to attract, to motivate people, because it is like not about a specific individual in a specific city, that they went to employment service and they formalized, declared their work, that they were brave enough and now they have better living conditions or occupational conditions, labor conditions. Now these stories look like stories, like fiction. So we suggest that you try to bring more reality into those stories. Thank you so much for this work. We hug you, Sophia, Antonia, and to all the colleagues who have been working on that. And that was cool. Thank you and all the best. Thank you, Vasil. First of all, Antonia passes his regards to all of you. Unfortunately, at the very last moment, he had to leave for a meeting in the cabinet, and he had to go there. He was very upset that he couldn't join this meeting. However, during these 2.5 years, you've seen a lot of him anyway. Speaking about the stories, you mentioned those cases that we publish on websites. I agree that they are depersonalized and they rather are about the issue that people face, not so much about success. I absolutely agree with you. Together with SLS colleagues and with labor inspectors, well, by the way, those were stories that are stories of actual people, actual individuals. So with the help of our colleagues from SLS, we collect stories from all the oblasts for employees and employers, their communication with inspectors, what they thought at the beginning, how they changed their minds at the end of that work. So now we have much more stories, and they are very much focused on actual individuals declared, about employers who registered their employees. And I don't really like success stories. That looks very ambitious to me. I refer to them as stories of change. That seems more adequate to me. But actually, receiving names, photos of people, of actual people, that's a challenge. And there is just one employer in Luhansk Oblast who agreed to give us an interview with her face open, because this is a rather sensitive topic. And the both parties, employers, employees, they're not really ready to go public. And those stories that we are disseminating, they are anonymized, but I believe that a lot of people could recognize themselves there. Thank you, Vasil. And I believe that now we can wrap up, summarize. I'm very grateful for the recommendations, suggestions that we have heard from you. And I would like to step back a little bit, to rewind, and to remind you where we started and where we are now. When we started, actually, the notion of undeclared labor, undeclared work, this notion just didn't exist in Ukraine, in our discourse, in our idiom. It was first presented to experts, to those specialized authorities that deal with labor market in 2016, 2017. In 2018, when we analyzed the information space, we could see that there was actually no information, zero information for the public on that topic. There were no reliable sources of information. We had no information, we had no awareness in the population about that notion, and we had very low level of understanding of what that is about. So when we observed that situation where there was zero awareness in early 2019, due to our communication experts, we tried to define who our target audience should be. We clearly set our target audiences. We tried to analyze what messages we need to convey on that phenomenon. In addition to that, we came up with quality content, reliable information, and that information we started broadcasting or conveying these messages based on reliable, trusted institutions, SLS, and other stakeholders. And that's important because now we have a database, a library on the website of SLS, and we disseminate via other channels. And there people can receive a lot of practical hands-on information where they have access to information in understandable language. They read that, they try to understand the situation better. And it's important that we provided quality content both for Ukrainian language population and for those who speak Russian. And that is not political issue. This is just technical communication aspect. It is important that Ukraine provided reliable information for these audiences. And of course, when we had the product that we could convey and we knew how to convey, we were joined by partners and this very influential ramified networks that made it possible for us to reach the target audiences. So I do believe that this is the key success factor, your engagement, the network. And I believe that the potential of it was used due to the fact that there was the product that could be conveyed. And that was high quality, rich in content. So considering quite short lifespan or of this campaign and considering the baseline where we started, I believe that we've made an important step forward. And we can see now what we need to focus on this year. At least I see, and based on your comments, I also realize that we need to develop more convincing, clear messages for employers. We need to develop clear messages for SMEs. And there I see a lot of potential for working, collaborating with those businesses and to work with their associations. Also, I see a lot of potential on working with those people who plan to become entrepreneurs, who plan some startups. I also see that we need to enhance our work with young people via Ministry of Education, festivals, committees, trade union committees within educational institutions, because this is how we bring up those people who will soon be in the labor market. They will be employees, they will be employers, they will hire people, and where we start conveying this message earlier, by and by, these people who find themselves in that situation, in that unhappy situation, will be reduced, because we will develop the culture of declaring work. And the easiest way is to promote that among those people who are just starting their labor life or businesses. It is more efficient than working with those people who have been there long, who have some model set. So I believe it is a good outcome, and this is our joint common result, and I believe that it will be to the benefit for us all. And just to summarize, I believe that we are lucky because we are on the light side, so to say, of the labor market. But there are a lot of people who are still in the shadow, and all of us together, we can work on to help them to join us. And stay with us for a couple of minutes more, because we are going to broadcast videos of students, winners in the of the festival. Go to Light and declare a work campaign, and hope to see you in the next phases of the campaign.
Чи знаєте ви, що незадекларована праця не захищає ваші трудові та соціальні права?
Яу! Цінуй свою роботу. Ти молода людина, здобув освіту і знання. Хочеш поваги грошей? Визнання біле, чорне, реальне, ілюзорне. Обираєш ти, обрав, вітаю, не знаєш. Тепер ти машина і права не маєш на гідну зарплату, лікарняні відпустку, працюй без почину, працюй щохвилину. Хто ти? Без прав ти машина. Без прав ти машина. Без прав ти машина. Я. Цінуй себе, цінуй роботу. Тільки задекларована праця гарантує гідну заробітну плату, оплачувану відпустку і лікарняні, безпечні та здорові умови праці. Дізнайтеся більше на сайті Державної служби з питань праці dsp.gov.ua.
Як ти гадаєш, яку роль у твоєму житті відіграє ручка і папірець? Ти, напевне,
Pen and piece of paper plays in your life. Maybe you know this joke. You forgot your pen, you didn't learn the theme, you didn't pass the test, you do not graduate from school, you do not go to the university, you have no job, you don't earn money, you have nothing, no money to buy food, and you don't get married, you become depressed, you die. However, in every joke, there is part of truth. Imagine that you didn't receive a pen and contract to declare your labor, which means that they can just refuse to pay to you. You can be laid off without any notice. You can be forced to work extra hours. You will not have leaves or compensations, and your experience is not documented. Do you still believe that it is just about pen and paper? Do not work in the shadow, declare your work. Go to light. This is Sonia. She takes an umbrella when she goes to rain because she knows that otherwise she would be wet and unhealthy. And when she goes to work, she always does that officially because she will have a stable salary, leaves, paid sick leave, because that's logical. It's logical to take your umbrella when it is raining and to work officially. Declared labor guarantees safe labor conditions, payment for extra hours and leaves.